Hello, this is part 2 of my Digitakt drum tutorials. In the first one I showed how to make these sorts of drum loops, and I'm going to continue in this tutorial using those drum loops to rearrange into new patterns and new beats, using a couple of tricks that I've found out that I really like. So I have already loaded one sample that I've used before in various tracks, and it sounds like this. I'm gonna make it louder by going into the master page, master compressor page, hold Func and press LFO to get to this page, and I'll just make it louder. Basically what I did was just increase the compression, increase the makeup gain. It doesn't really matter exactly how loud, it's just going to be something that I think sounds good. And I think that's okay. So a couple of other things I do before I start using the loops is I make sure that they have a bit of attack. 8 is okay. And set the release to 8 as well, so in case we're in the middle of a phase, when we play a sample, it won't have that click sound. And I'll increase the overdrive because I like that sound. And I record all my beats at double speed, so let's set the tune back down to -12. Or we can hold Func and turn the knob to jump 12 notes at a time. And let's also just add a bit of bit reduction. Just a tiny bit. Okay, so now I can start showing these tricks: the kick boost and the bit reduction snap, ghost notes and retrigger. The kick boost, let's just copy this sound. Okay, so what I did was I selected track 1, held track and copy, and then I went to track 2 and pasted it. And I'm gonna do the changes on track 2 so we can have track 1 as the original sound, the before sound, and track 2 as the after sound, so we can compare. So let's go to track 2, and the trick is to use a high pass filter. That's what I tried to draw here, and use the resonance to boost the low end of the kick. So we just have to find the sweet spot. Somewhere around here, I think. And if it's a bit, if it doesn't sound that good, you can try tweaking the envelope depth and the decay time. I'm not exactly sure how this sounds, but I think this is what I'm going to go for. Okay, so that's the kick boost. There's also the bit reduction snap. I can show it on the kick because the kick is actually a bit soft. It doesn't have that much of an attack. So we can increase the snappiness by using an LFO set to bit reduction. And what we're going to do is basically use the exponential shape to give it some bit reduction at the start and then fade to give it no bit reduction. And so we have to set the mode to 1. So that it plays once, and now what happens is when we increase the depth, we're gonna give it bit reduction right at the start, and then it's gonna fade to nothing. We can make it more pronounced by slowing down the LFO. Which will, yeah, the slower the LFO, the more bit reduction you have, basically. And the faster the LFO moves, the shorter amount of time we have bit reduction. And then there's ghost notes. Let me just do this. If you're gonna skip through the video, you can see what parts I've already talked about. And there's ghost notes. And let's copy this track back to track 1, and then let's turn this one into a ghost note for the kick. What I like to do is, there are two things. I like to shorten it so that it's a bit quicker, snappier. And I also like to use a normal low-pass filter and then lower the cutoff. So let's just hold filter and clear to clear the page. Now it's back to default. And let's try it out. That's a bit short, maybe. That's better, I think. Actually, that was a bit long, maybe. So yeah, I've made it short by turning the hold time down. And I've lowered the cutoff a lot, but given it a bit of envelope depth. And let's see if this works. Let's give it that bit reduction trick. See if it gets even more pronounced. Bit reduction, set it to exponential, set the mode to 1. Yeah, it's not noticeable because bit reduction happens before the filter, so all the bit reduction is going to be filtered out before we hear it. Yeah, but so yeah, that's how I do the ghost notes, that I have just a normal kick and then I have a short kick. Let's just see what it sounds like in action. Let's put this one to a snare. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I use the ghost notes. We can do it for the snare as well. Let's copy this one to track 4. And then let's give this one the same treatment. Lower the cutoff and make it shorter. Yeah, so that's how I do my ghost notes. I'll demonstrate later how I use all this in one track. And finally we have retrigger, which is I can't play it live except just play faster, but what it basically does is yeah, let's just make a very quick pattern. Retrigger is when we make one trick play twice. So when we set the rate to a 30-second note, and we have to make the length of it only last one trig, it'll sound like this. And if we do this with a ghost note, so I remove it from this track, and then I'll paste it into track 4. Let's see what this sounds like. So that's retrigger, it just plays twice. And I accidentally skipped this part. This is an important part. And that is I make all my loops look like this, where I always start with a kick. There's always a kick in the middle, and there are always snares at 5 and 13. And I always end with some sort of open hat. So whenever I load up a loop I've made, I know that if I set the starting point to 30, it's gonna be a snare. And if I set it to 105, it's gonna be an open hat or something. And the hat is at 45. And that makes it easier for me to, when I've made a pattern, I can just reload a new sample and just see if that sample sounds better, and see if I should switch to that sample. Or I could only change, say I only want to change this sound, then I can sample lock it to one of the other loops I've made. And yeah. I'll see if I can try to demonstrate that, the sample lock. And yeah, let's move over to the next part, which is making a beat in your head before you make it on the machine, and making it with your mouth before you even start trying it out here. So let's just clear everything, and yeah, we'll just use this track. Let's clear the filter on this track. So when I make a beat, I usually make a beat with my mouth first, and then I try to sort of copy that beat over to the Digitakt. But before I do that, I try to sort of map out where every 16th note is in the beat. So let's start with just a really simple 16th note hi-hat. Like every note is a 16th, every 16th note is a hi-hat. So this is what's going on in my head. There's and it would look like this, where every step would be a hat, right? I'm too lazy to put it on the rest, but every step is a hat. But let's say I play something different, like then I use I sort of count exactly where my notes are. Let's find a pencil, or we can just use this pen. I usually tap out every 16th note when I do this. So what I made was that's it's probably not what I made originally, but let's go with this one. So I tap out every note. So I know that the downbeats are So I slow it down even more so that I can tap out every 16th note. And so let's try to place the notes. Everything is hi-hat except for the sounds. So we know that the first one is a kick. I'll just tap out on the snares because it's in the middle of the screen. Did you notice where I should place a kick? It would be around here somewhere, so it's, yeah, these two, 10 and 11. There's a kick on 10 and there's a kick on 11. And there was a kick over here on 16. So now I've mapped out where the kicks are. And let's add in a snare. So where would the snare be? Let's see. Yeah, there's one on 5. And one on 13. So let's use the resample, or let's use the start point thing to make this pattern. First, yeah, we've set the attack and decay to or attack and release to very short, to 8. Let's make the trigs last for almost 2 steps. That way we have a step that lasts both for this trig will play until the end of this one. It's very long compared to just one. And I do that because I don't want to have to fill in every step. If I can get away with it, I'll just leave some empty spaces. So yeah, let's try this. There's a kick here, so let's go to source and set the start point to 0, because that's where the kick is, or kick and cymbal. Actually, let's use 60 instead, because I don't want the cymbal on every kick. So let's put this one to 60. Yep. And there's also the whole thing about using the kick boost trick. So we can set this immediately on this step. And what I like to do is I do everything. I don't apply the parameter locks to the trig itself. What I do is I make it so that this, when I press the button, the track button, I'll play the sound that I want. So let's make the sound I want. Let's set this one to high pass. Let's find the sweet spot. I think that's fine. And now that I have the sound I want, I want the filter page to look like this, then I can go to this trig and lock all these parameters that are needed. So now I don't need this page anymore because I have it all set to this trig. So let's just clear this filter page. And yeah, so now we have a kick. And let's copy this kick over to, let's see there, that's 10, 11, and 16. 10, 11, 16. And there's also the snares, which would be on trig 30. I mean, starting point 30. And let's copy this here. And let's slow it down to, I like 80. There's also, yeah, I've mapped out, these are the starting points. We have at 60, which is this part, we have the kick. And at 0, we have the kick with a cymbal. And there's sort of the same thing going on here with the snare. We have a snare with the cymbal behind it. And we have a snare without the cymbal behind it. So there are two different snares, but it's very subtle. And yeah, so let's fill in everything with the hi-hats. I mean, fill in the rest. So what I played in my head and with my mouth was... Let's put in the hats. Okay, so I know everything that isn't a kick or a snare is a hat. And 9. These two are kicks, so there's a hat here. And fill in these. Number 16 is a hat. So let's do that. Let's put this trig over to 45. And let's just copy this. Hold the trig, press copy, and then just paste it everywhere. And now the beat, this beat that I thought of in my head before I started putting in the machine, will now sound like this. So it's really important to, at least for me, it's really important to just make a beat with your mouth before you start putting it on the machine, because it's easier to, at least for me, I get quicker at guessing where to place things because I've done so much work in my head, and instead of just trying to play a note or instead of placing it and then seeing if it's correct, I try to get it right the first time. And since I've done this a lot of times, then I've gotten really fast at it. And so yeah, it's a really good approach to just try to make the beat in your head or with your mouth, and then try to tap out every 16th note. And we can make this sound even better by having, I had a few red dice, so I can mark out which of the trigs are gonna be parameter locked. Like, let's make this kick a ghost kick. So step 10. Let's make this a ghost kick. Let's just clear everything. Lower it down to, actually let's do it the way I did it first, by having, let's shorten it and then lower the cutoff. Yeah, let's use this. So let's lock all these parameters that I set. And so now we have a ghost kick on this one, because we've set the filter page and the amp page to be a sort of shorter and softer kick. So step 10 is a ghost kick. And so let's just move this die over here so that we see that this is a ghost kick. And we want this one to be a ghost kick too. So let's copy this one to step 16. Oops. Yeah, and then let's clear the filter page, and let's set this back to note length. And let's see. Now we're gonna hear a softer kick over here and softer kick over here. And we can do the same with the hats. Let's make them a bit more interesting. Now they're just playing the same strength. So I know that the hats that are in between the kicks and snares, like the step 3, 11, and steps 7 and 15, I like to keep these hats loud. So let's keep these unchanged. But we can take the ones surrounding it and make them softer. So let's lower the... Actually, let's do this as well. Let's make it shorter and lower the cutoff. Yeah, let's try this. So this one is, we only have to lock this one and lock the note length. So let's set this back to max, and then let's clear this filter page, because now we have the settings saved to this hat. And I want to copy the hat and paste it around all the other notes. I mean, all the other loud hi-hats. So, yep, step 12 should have one, and step 14 should have one. So let's see what it sounds like now. Yeah, so that's basically how I go about making my beats. And we could try to make a page 2 for this, where we have a rolling snare. Instead of a kick, let's have a repeating snare. So I'll copy the snare, paste it on step 16, and then I'll set the retrigger to 32 or 30-second notes, or what it's called. Set the length to 1 step, and let's see what it sounds like now. So we could also make this one shorter, and we could make it give it a lower cutoff. And let's see what this sounds like. So that's what this pattern looks like now. We have, before I even made it in here, I sort of made it in my head. I don't really see this in my head, but this is what's going on in my head before I even start inputting the trigs into the Digitakt. So that's why on my previous videos, you can see me sort of counting all my notes. So let's just remove all these and then try to make a different beat. And I'll make there was one difficult beat that I tried earlier where counting all the 16th notes helped me. And that beat goes like... So the downbeats are... Let's try to figure this out. So it starts with a kick. And so let's try to find the next one. Yeah, there's a snare. And there's a kick on 7. I sort of missed, I think it was 10. Kick on 13. So I think this is correct. I'll just count it out on the snares. Yeah, let's try this. So let's move the kick over. I've made a kick. Let's just do something. I'm not sure if this is right. This requires a lot more practice. This is pretty new to me, the using the high pass filter. So I haven't gotten quick at this yet. But yeah, let's just use this. So there's a kick on 1, there's a kick on 7, and a kick on 13. And then there's a snare on 4. And a snare on 10. And a snare on 16. So now we're gonna hear, out of this box, we're gonna hear and to make it more pronounced, let's have a hi-hat wherever we can on all the in-betweens. So like if there's a free spot on every second trig, let's place a hat there. So there's a free spot on 5, on 3, 11, 15. I think there's a free spot on, yeah, there's a free spot on 9. So let's place hats over here. Oh, yeah, so 3, 5, 9, 11, and 15. And let's up the tempo to something closer to what I made. Yeah, that's close enough, I think. So let's check it out. So yeah, I think, again, I think this is a really nice way to just get faster at doing things. Try to sort of guess where everything is and try to tap out where everything is. And yeah, that's how I do it. So it's usually when I do the dishes, I'll be making mouth noises and just making a beat while doing boring stuff like doing chores. Let's try something right now, like okay. Right now I have no idea exactly what I'm doing. I'm moving too fast, so I have to slow down even more. Okay, so there's a kick right after that. And I know there's a hat here. Yeah, another snare. Another hat. Another snare. 2 kicks. I know it's not what I made, but let's have an open hat at the end. And I know I know this is going to be a ghost kick, so let's put this here. And this is going to be, yeah, let's just leave it here. I think it's supposed to be a bit shorter, but let's try with a normal, oh, close that. And ghost snare, another ghost snare, I guess. It's usually, these two are usually the loud snares. I have to do it again. I need a pen. This one's gonna be a ghost kick. And open hat. So yeah, let's try this. I know this is, and what's the tempo? We can just tap the tempo. Yeah, 100. And this one was a kick. I can see that because it's at 60. So let's just copy the kick to this step. There's nothing on step 4, so let's remove that. And then this is the snare. Let's paste the snares on 5 and 13 because they're usually always there. And let's make a ghost snare. I don't know what this is, so let's remove it. A ghost snare over here, so let's just make it shorter and make it softer. I think that's good. There's another kick here. And I don't know what these are, but now we have this kick over here, and then we want a ghost kick. So let's just clear all these and make this kick shorter, make it, give it less cutoff and a bit of envelope. I mean envelope depth and a bit of decay. So now we have made these kicks. I think this is a kick. Yes, it's at 60. This one's at 60. And this is a ghost kick. And I see we have a ghost kick over here. And this is a snare. And I think this was, yeah, it's a ghost snare. So let's just copy this one over here because we have a ghost snare on 10. These two are kicks. And let's put in, so we have done the kicks and snares. Now we have the hi-hats left. So let's go to this step 7, add a hat, copy the hat over to step 9. And on this one we have an open hat, and an open hat is on step or starting point 105. So it's gonna be a I've lost it, but that's basically how I do it. I have an idea. I make mouth noises to make the beat, and then I try to translate those mouth noises into the Digitakt. So let's see. That's another thing. When I made the mouth noises, I had swing. So let's give it some swing. So yeah, that's I didn't really plan a longer tutorial than this. I could make one last beat, I think. We've been going for 15 minutes. So yeah, we can do one more beat. Yeah, I can demonstrate a few places where I use reverse the, what's the word for this? The lock trigs, or the trigless locks. Basically the noteless trigs that only have parameter locks but don't play notes. So let's just clear everything. And one of my favorite moves is to have a really hard kick on the first 4 steps, like a like it's a really long one. So we can do that by having the first trig last for 4 steps, and then halfway let's add a noteless trig. You can do that by holding Funk and pressing the trig to place a yellow note, which is a noteless trig. And then let's set this one in the source page. Let's set this to reverse. And yeah, let's put a snare over here. I know it's set 30. Yeah, what I'm doing now is just filling out so that all the 8th notes are filled. So this one is going to be a very long kick, and the tempo should be at 80 something, no swing. Oh, I think I accidentally forgot to save, so let's just set it all back to the same settings that I had before, or almost same settings. Yeah, tune. I think this is it. So what I'm hearing here is I can have a... So let's try that. I'm basically doing what I did here, but without showing you, sort of. It's so I hear that these two are the same. So we need hats. This is hat. Let's see what it sounds like so far. I think this snare needs a bit... It's so short. So yeah, I can demonstrate now the sound lock. I mean the sample lock. So I want to change the snare sound, but I like the kick sound. But I want a snare that has a longer tail. So let's find one. Let's just copy this one to... Now we have 2 identical tracks. So let's go to track 2, and then hold Funk and Source to select a new sample, and then Funk and Yes to go into the sample browser, so that we can replace the sample at this slot with the one we want. Source, Funk Source and Funk Yes. And let's find something that has... Yeah, this is a long snare, because it has... Yeah, it's a really loud snare. So let's go back to track 1, and then I'm holding both trigs now, both the snares, and I want them to play this sample. So now they're sample locked to a different sample than the default sample, which is 1. These 2 are now playing sample 2. So it sounds like this. Oh yeah, that's, of course, the length is still at 1/16. We have to set them to 1.88 or 94. Actually, I think maybe we can have the hats play that other sample too. I forgot what I was mouthing earlier, but I like the sound of this, the closed hat. And I think it'll sound good with a kick over here. So, but it's a bit loud if we have all three hi-hats play the same strength. So I think these two can be softer. So let's just take these two trigs and lower the cutoff on them until I can barely see it here. Then I'll release this trig to lower it a bit further so that we sort of have a loud, very soft, a bit louder, and then continue the pattern. So it'll sound like this. Actually, let's see what it sounds like if we change the kick to play the other sample. Yeah, that sounds cool. So copy this one. I want a double snare over here, like a retriggering one. So I copy, okay, let's do it from the start. I'm moving a bit fast. Let's take trig 13 and copy it. Paste it down on trig 16 or step 16. Press and hold the step 16 and then press the up arrow to turn on retrigger mode. And let's set it to 32 and lower the length to 1. And I also know already that I want them to play ghost notes. So let's just make this trig short and let's lower the cutoff. And hopefully it'll sound okay. If not, then I have to do more work on it, but that's usually my workflow. I just guesstimate where it should be and then hit play. And I could go on, but maybe I should stop here, and then I can if you have any more questions, I can split this off into more tutorials. I could, one idea for a tutorial I have is I could make, I do this in a track from scratch video. I plan on doing more of those, but I could show you how I use 4 pages of drum patterns and show you what sort of variations I do. And another tutorial idea is how I usually have a hat pattern on track 2, and how I go about muting and unmuting, and what sort of how I make those decisions on when to mute and when to unmute. But I think for now it's a good place to stop, I think. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope it was helpful. Bye!